You know, I have to admit, I'm not the biggest fan of this aesthetic, but it does look better in person.
Cold he can swim in the sky, he can fly beneath the sea. In his travels, Mazinger Z. Mazinger is pressed and made strong.
Hello and welcome back to another Plum overview. Today we're taking a look at the High Grade Infinity Mazinger Z. And starting off as always with the articulation. The head is on a ball joint, goes down into the neck and has a ridiculous amount of range. Then there's a hinge at the base of the neck, so you get a pretty great amount of articulation there at the head. Shoulder is on a front-back hinge in the chest itself, and then a ball joint for a little bit more range aside from that. There's an outwards hinge in the shoulder itself, which combined with the ball joint gets you just under 90 degrees, and can of course rotate. There is a bicep rotation, as well as a double jointed elbow, and there's a swivel in the middle of those two joints. Fist, as always, is ball jointed, though it's so far in there you don't get a ton of range. Gotta pull it out a little bit, and there is a hinge in the wrist. The chest is a ball joint for a pretty great amount of range there and a rotation. The waist is just a swivel, though if you pull it up a little bit you can get a little bit of front to back too. The front skirt is actually attached onto the hips. Side skirts are just ball jointed onto the side, and there is no back skirt. Unfortunately, these being pegged on does mean you have to shift these hips down in order to rotate them up. However, that said, despite that limitation, you do actually get pretty nice articulation out of the hips. A full 90 there is pretty impressive considering the actual joint. There's of course a thigh rotation, and the knee can get just over 90. The ankles aren't great. They have a pretty nice pivot to either side and can hinge down alright, but there's not a ton to the front unless you really pull them almost all the way out. Overall, the articulation is fine. Nothing really special, but it gets the job done. And getting into accessories and gimmicks, let's start off as always with the sticker sheet and by extension color correction. None of these are used on the main kit, so gonna put those over to the side for the moment. There's almost no paint on this entire thing. It's a little bit in the pile there. You do need to paint the yellow stripe there, and I put some silver behind the clear canopy because otherwise it would just be red. Also, there's a little bit of yellow poking out just right here on both sides from the piece that makes up the eyes. So I'd recommend painting a bit of silver there because that's what I did. Also, the silver is the injection silver, obviously. It's actually not very swirled, which is nice, but it does mean that the nubs are really bad, so I had to paint all the nubs. It's pretty noticeable here. You can see the paint on them, but it was way, way worse before that. Almost this color, basically. But aside from that, it's all color correct, which I mean it's like, what, 4 colors, but still, it's nice. Now, getting into accessories proper, let's start off with that pile there, because you can actually pull it out and fold down the very delicate turbine wings, and it looks great. Very little, oh yeah, a little bit of black there in the, yeah, but that's nothing. This does look really good, but man, these wings are real delicate. Just even putting them in kind of stressed the plastic a little bit. So, you know, be careful with this. In fact, I'm just going to put it right back. Also, I do want to quickly mention, this is translucent red, and that's all molded on the inside of the part. Wow, it looks real nice in person. It's looking pretty good on camera too, but man, it looks beautiful in person. The way it catches the light is just... Anyway, let's talk about the hands. You do get these 2 closed fists, but you also get 2 more hands. A really, really useful dynamic hand. Now this is specifically for the pose of it shaking hands with great, but this works really well as a dynamic hand too, so I'm really, really glad that they added this. They also added an iron cutter hand of it just being straight. There's a slight complaint I have about that, but we'll get into it. it's still nice to have this karate chop hand. You will notice that these are both for the right hand, so left hand only has a closed fist. Really wish they just given us one of these. I always like hand options. It's not like you can, you know, steal them from another kit for this either. So, speaking of the iron cutter, you do get 4 blades, and that's because you can pop off these panels here on the arm and just plug these in a little L shape here on both sides. That does of course raise the question of why did they include 4 blades if they're only going to include 1 hand. But maybe it was just the space they had on the Silver Runner because it was a duplicate. More importantly for the arms, you can probably see, and because of this, they've given it away, you can of course do the rocket punches. And it does actually have a thruster molded in here, which is a really nice detail. You do, however, get 2 of these, which is the detailing that's supposed to be here during that. Literally just plugs on. I mean, it looks great. You get one that's just that detailing, and you get another one which has a peg on it for the full volley attack, where you just literally plug the arm back on here. Which, I mean, elbow missiles, fair enough. It does work, like aesthetically, it's fine. And there is one final thing to talk about with the fists, and that is the blast or rocket punch effects. Plug them in right there, and there's a 5mm hexagonal, octagonal hole in the inside of both of these. So if you have an extra action base lying around, you can... Actually, I think it might come with 2 of these, but this is a good jumper for a 3mm, or you can just plug it directly into a 5mm sheath for action base. Or you can do what I like and just plug it directly on here as it being launched. Which, that works surprisingly well. You're not going to be able to hold it vertically, but it stays on. You don't have to worry about it falling off unless you literally hold it directly up. So, nice little hack there to give a good pose for a rocket punch. Now, the final proper accessory is, of course, the Scrander, which is almost completely symmetrical except for these inner panels on these wings having lines on one side, not the other. Could have just put a panel line there, it would have been completely fine. Same thing up here on both sides, there's an extra panel there, but that's not a big deal. And this is, of course, where those extra stickers... Yeah, you can probably tell where they go. These ribbed ones go around the turbine detailing there, and the straight ones just go into those slots on both sides of the top fin. Aside from that though, this is fully color separated. The back thruster are separate pieces, the red and everything is separate, so it's not too bad. Now in order to attach this, you pop off the buckle, pop off both sides, go around to the back of Z and pull off this panel, which is easier to grab it from the bottom. Just leaves a gaping hole in the back, which this then plugs into, just like that. Plug these back in on both sides, and then put the buckle back on. Then just angle these up, and Mazinger Z can fly. Which brings us to this. This is so it can stay up on the stand with less of a noticeable connection, but you may understand the problem with this. This doesn't actually connect at all. There's just no connection there at all. Which means unless you perfectly balance this, it's going to fall off of it. Now the funny thing about that is this does come with an Action Base 4, black base, but it also includes a normal crotch cradle. Yeah, at this point they probably could have just put an actual hole there, but you still have the legs pretty much perfectly straight down, even with this attached, and you ain't going anywhere. This was a waste of plastic, frankly. I don't know why they didn't at least put a little clip on it or something. It just doesn't hold on at all. And you can do the same thing with this one, so I don't know why they bothered. And also, it's not really in frame, but that is not very intrusive. It doesn't look bad to have that there. Especially if he's angled this way, you're not going to be able to see it at all. So it's just, it feels really pointless, frankly. If you're not going to do it right, don't do it at all. And as for a quick size comparison, it's 1/44 scale Mazinger, so larger than your average Gundam. Not huge. It's about the size of the Sazabi, but that does mean it's pretty big compared to the RX. So, to wrap this review up, I do like this kit. It has a couple little annoyances, but I mean, it does the job perfectly well. Has good articulation, pretty much perfect color separation. I'm not the biggest fan of the panel spam. It's just not really my aesthetic, but this is probably the best Mazinger you can get for this price. If you like the Infinity look, this is a great kit. It does pretty much everything right. There's really nothing else to say. It's Mazinger. And that's all for this video. Thank you very much for watching. Be sure to let me know what you think down in the comments below. Subscribe and hit the bell to be alerted for future reviews. Come chill in the Discord. Follow me on Twitter, if that's even still around. And consider supporting me on Patreon so I can keep bringing you videos like this. And, as always, until next time, happy building.